Hello, welcome to another episode of the DRH Show. As usual, in each episode, I'll be talking to interesting people within psychology, mental health, and wellness. Today, I'm joined by a narcissistic abuse expert, Emma Davey. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here, Emma. So let's start off with you telling us your backstory, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so I was suffering from narcissistic abuse for around 3.5 years in a relationship. And it got to the point where I attempted 2 suicides. I resorted to self-harm, and I knew that I had become addicted to my abuser. And the only way I was going to get out of it was to remove myself from the situation. So I actually went to Australia, and that's where I qualified as a counsellor and a narcissistic recovery coach. And then I returned back to England and opened my own practice, my trauma therapy. And I also opened up a support group on Facebook, which is called Victims of Narcissistic Support Group. And now it's become so popular amongst many victims, speaking about what they're going through and just reaching out for support.
It's a really empowering story because not a lot of people who've experienced what you've gone through would probably recover and bounce back. But if you could just step back earlier, could you just define to us what narcissistic abuse is?
Yeah, so narcissistic abuse is a form of emotional abuse which is perpetrated by someone that suffers with narcissistic personality disorder. They use many different tactics to manipulate and control their victim into making them a robot figure of who the narcissist wants them to be. Narcissists are users. They make the person feel like they need to have that person in their life. The narcissist becomes very controlling. The coercive behavior starts to happen. So they use many different forms such as gaslighting, which is one of the most dangerous forms of emotional abuse. It makes the victim completely dependent on the narcissist. It makes them feel like they have nothing in life without them, so they don't know what to do without the narcissist in their life.
You mentioned one form of narcissistic abuse there, Emma, which is gaslighting. If you could just explain to us what is gaslighting, and could you give us an example?
Yeah, so there's many forms of gaslighting. So they try to completely manipulate you in thinking that you don't have an identity anymore. They will use forms of where they completely gaslight you in the forms of leaving you alone. So they will pull you in, they'll give you lots of love bombing, you'll give you so much love and attention, and then they'll totally discard you in the sense of they just leave their victim completely alone. And that's where the form of the addiction has kicked in, and then the victim will start thinking that they really just need some form of attention from the narcissist.
And Emma, because you've experienced this, you really know how to help individuals recover from this kind of situation. But if you could just give us like what are the key signs to look out for if your loved one is suffering from narcissistic abuse?
So from an outsider, if you're starting to notice someone that you really care about, that they might be with a narcissistic abuser, then they will start to withdraw themselves from the circle. Narcissists like to isolate their victims. They make them feel like they're not worthy to be on the outside world with everyone else. And so they'll start to isolate them. They will start becoming very much within themselves, not wanting to go out, not having many friends, making excuses to not show up to events, completely change their personality. You'll notice that they become quite soulless. They just become a shadow of themselves. They don't know who they are anymore because the narcissist has broken them down so much. And it's quite painful to see, because you can see in that the victim's eyes that they're there, but they're who they used to be are just not there anymore.
And based from your experience, Emma, who usually seeks for your advice? Is it usually male or female? Basically, what I'm trying to drill down to is it who is usually the victim of narcissistic abuse? Is it male or female? And who is usually the perpetrator?
Anyone can have narcissistic personality disorder. It's narcissistic personality disorder is formed actually when someone is when someone's in a child within the child development stage. So many people come to me, male and female, because a narcissist can be in a partner, parent, co-worker, boss. So anyone can be affected by a narcissist.
It's not really to a specific gender. Now, what advice would you give to someone who think they're stuck in a narcissistic abusive relationship?
So the phase one is probably realizing that, okay, something's not right. And then it's starting to, okay, how am I going to get out of this? Because when a victim starts to realize that they are with a narcissist, it's very hard to get out, because by that point, the victim has become completely dependent on the narcissist, and a form of an addiction, which is love addiction, has kicked in as well. So the thought of not being without that person in your life is absolutely terrifying. Exactly the same as drugs and alcohol addiction. It's really hard to break away from this type of relationship. And so reaching out for support, asking people, you know, do you think it's me? Do you think am I doing anything wrong? Because as a victim, we would have been conditioned in thinking that everything is our fault. We would have been manipulated in thinking that we've done this to the narcissist, that's why they're treating us this way. So you kind of have to get validation from other people in the fact that no, it's not you and something's not right and you need to get out. I would suggest for victims that, especially suffering with gaslighting, to start writing things down, because another form of gaslighting is they do like to make you feel like you're going crazy. They will say things that you haven't said. They will make out that you've done things that you haven't done. They'll say something and say, I never said that. So I recommend writing everything down, kind of like a journal. This is what happened today, so you can reflect back on it. And then start looking at your exit plan. How am I going to get out of this relationship? And reaching out for support is one of the main things I can recommend, because as I said, it's so hard to walk away from this person that's become like a god figure in your life, that you feel like you haven't, or you can't do anything without this person. So start to plan your exit as well, because narcissists like to isolate you so much where you don't have friends or family. You've become dependent on them financially. Like, there's so many forms of narcissistic abuse where they get you into this position where you need to get out, otherwise it's very much sink or swim. Narcissistic abuse is so dangerous, it does kill people. So my advice is, if you start to realize that you're with a narcissist at any point, there'll be red flags all over the place. Get out and run as soon as you can.
Now, when you mentioned to me that narcissistic abuse could kill people, it actually reminded me of the film I was watching on Netflix last night. I don't know if you've heard about Carol Packman. Yeah, I think that qualifies as a narcissistic abuse with, I forgot the partner's name now, Russell Cosley.
Yeah.
That you definitely have to, watch out for those signs. Now, earlier you mentioned about one form of narcissistic abuse, which is gaslighting. Is there any other forms of narcissistic abuse that you could share to us?
So they like to, when you first meet a narcissist, they'll love bomb you. Love bomb you is where I like to call it the grooming stage. The abuser has got hold of a victim and they have to make this victim totally dependent on them. So they use charm, they choose love, they show so much affection. They listen to everything that you have to say. They make you believe that they are your soulmate. And so you lower your boundaries and you tell them everything. You tell them everything about your past, about your vulnerabilities. And at the time, they'll be, supporting you and, thank you for telling me that. You know, they start to mirror you as well. They start to say that the interests that you have are exactly the same as what they have, and it's all to make you fall in love with them. Like they make you feel like you've met your soulmate. So, and this is where they get you hooked on them. It's very much like a drug dealer giving out free drugs. They're making you dependent on them. They're giving you such a massive high that you don't want this high to stop. Like, it's way too good to be true. And so then they start to mirror you, as I said, and then they start to push the boundaries. They start to see how far they can push you and to see how much that you are prepared to take for them. Because once they know that you're hooked on them, they'll start seeing how far that they can push and how much they can get away with. And then they start to withdraw, and then that's when they want you to chase after them, and they know that then that you're hooked. And then that's when the cycle of abuse will come in. That's when the manipulation, the gaslighting, where they'll pull you in, discard you, pull you in, discard you. So you're constantly feeling like you're in adrenaline mode. You're always on high alert to make this person happy, and then you start walking around on eggshells, not wanting to upset the narcissist because you just want them to be that person that you met in the very beginning. But unfortunately, that person that you met was totally fake. It was a complete facade. It was a mask that they were wearing. And this is what victims find really hard to understand, that the person that they first met doesn't exist.
And what about those partners who don't talk to their partners, like silent treatment? Would you also classify that as a form of abuse?
Yeah, so the silent treatment is gaslighting. So when they pull you in and they discard you again, and they go no contact for a couple of days, that's gaslighting.
Mm-hmm. Now, during my preparation for this interview, Emma, I found out that you also have a very popular Facebook page, and it's got thousands of members who share their stories to you confidentially. Can you tell us more about your Facebook page?
Yeah, so when I reached Australia last year, I literally had one friend at the time in Australia, and I felt so alone. I had no family out there, and I just wanted someone to talk to that completely understood me, because some people would look at me as if I was absolutely crazy. And this is really hard for victims. For someone who doesn't know or hasn't been in a narcissistic relationship, they are completely unaware of what this type of abuse does to you. So I just set up this group, just merely looking for someone for me to talk to. And from there, it's just grown and grown and grown. And so many victims of, and I like to call them survivors as well,
Mhm.
has come through to this group, and it has ultimately changed people's lives. It has enabled people from all over the world to connect and realize that they are a victim, and there is help out there, and you can get through this abuse. The recovery period is hard and it takes a long time, but you can recover from it.
Absolutely. And Emma, how do you personally help those who have been victims of abuse without going through much through the, specific details? Of course, we have to protect their confidentiality, but can you just talk us through about the essential steps that you introduce to your, the people that you're helping with?
Yeah, so on the group, it's very much about talking. So just writing, just getting it all out, just letting it all out there. And just because as soon as you've said it out loud, it becomes real. Victims suppress their feelings for so long because they don't actually want to admit what they've been ignoring for so many years or months. Um, so when people ask me personally, can you help me recover? I've got a recovery program which is many different phases of recovery, And the first thing that you've got to do is say everything out loud. All the times that something's happened, holidays, birthdays that narcissists have ruined, their behaviour, how it's happened. There's so many different forms, because victims start to form depression, anxiety, PTSD. There's just so many different forms that narcissistic abuse makes someone feel. And then we look at, why did you fall for the narcissist? Why did you ignore the red flags at the very beginning? And then you've kind of got to go back as well, like before the narcissist, and see why you allowed that to happen. Because not everyone will be sucked into someone that has NPD, because they might have been through it themselves before, or they just won't tolerate that type of behavior. So you have to find out why. And it's a case that many victims are empaths, because empaths are a narcissistic's dream to find. And then it's about learning about NPD so much that you are so prepared for the future, in that you will never allow someone to treat you like that before. Flags, learning about what NPD is, and because it's very common for a victim to come out of a narcissistic relationship and then jump back into one, because that kind of behavior has become so normal to a victim that they need that validation, that they need that high that they're craving so much.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you try to connect with people with that similar live experience, and essentially that's what you're trying to achieve with the Facebook group that you set up. Because ultimately you have to look the landscape of your relationship from other people's point of view.
Yeah.
What I want to also ask you, Emma, is that obviously the narcissistic abuse relationship, it's not just all about the victims, but obviously they're at the center of this, problem. But we also have to help those people who are abusers. So can you give us some ways on how we could help abusers change their behavior?
If you're talking about a narcissistic personality disorder, unfortunately, it can't be cured. It can be managed, but it can't be cured. And you can't expect an abuser to change, because that is their identity. When a narcissistic personality is formed in the early years of childhood, that is, their brain is rewired. So they physically can't unwire it. They are who they are. They can't see that they are doing anything wrong. They feel very entitled people, very godlike figure. So they will never, they have zero empathy as well. So when they are inflicting so much pain onto the victim, they feel entitled to do this. So they don't see that they are doing anything wrong. And unfortunately, I mean, I hear so many victims say, but I just want to save them. I love them so much. You can't save them. You can't change them. The only person you can save is yourself, and the only person you can change is yourself. So stop, like I say to victims, stop focusing on them and start focusing on yourself, because ultimately you're the only person that's going to suffer in this.
And the other thing another thing about this, Emma, is that there is also like a sort of a cycle. Because if you were brought up by narcissistic abusive parents, then chances are you're going to also formulate, narcissistic relationship in the future. So would you agree that this is kind of the trend in this type of relationship?
Yes, I mean, I've seen thousands of people, and I've seen victims that have had narcissistic parents and have gone completely the other way, and they're suffering with their own issues. But yes, it's very common for a child of narcissistic parents to then go on and have a narcissistic partner, because that behavior becomes normality for them, and they need that type of up and down drama behavior to make them feel like they're normal. A very standard normal relationship to a victim that's been with a narcissist actually becomes boring to a victim. They need this high, and this is where the addiction has formed. And this is why it's so important to identify that being with a narcissist, you've actually formed an addiction for them, and you have to break this addiction, otherwise it will just continue. You'll always look out for a narcissistic personality, because it's going to give you that amazing adrenaline rush that a drug or alcohol would give you, but it's so unhealthy. It ultimately does kill you. It breaks you down so much, because the highs become less and less and less, and you're just left completely broken.
And of course, as you've mentioned, you part of your role is obviously to introduce them that, to realize that this is actually an addiction and they've got to do something about it. Otherwise, it will just damage their well-being and their mental health. No, I really appreciate you taking the time talking to me today, because you're definitely educating me about this issue. I'm fortunate that I've got a very loving husband. I've never been involved in a narcissistic abuse relationship. But would you agree, Emma, that more needs to be done in terms of this, like educating younger generation about this kind of relationship?
Absolutely, Dennis. People need to start realizing, educating themselves in this type of personality disorder, because people are gonna meet with narcissists throughout their life, maybe partners, bosses in the workplace, or even parents. They might actually realize that, okay, my parents might have NPD, that's why they're treating me this way. Within schools, I think identifying what a healthy relationship looks like and a toxic relationship is so crucial, because as a child or a teenager starts going into early adulthood, they don't recognize what good and bad relationships look like, and that's when they're very vulnerable in being a victim of some coercive or narcissistic personality abuse. So yes, I think it's so imperative that people should start educating children in this, and I would love to see something to be done within schools.
Mhm. And what about the authorities? Do you think that, the authorities are taking it seriously enough to help victims?
Feedback that I've been given from clients and people on the group, no, I don't think it is. I think because victims of NPD don't necessarily have broken bones or bruises, we look okay from the outside, but it's the mental side, it's the emotional side that really impacts the mental health. And no, I don't think people are aware of this type of abuse
Mhm.
as
And,
much as, say, domestic violence.
mhm. And do you think there are charities, organizations within, the UK or other countries that help people who've been victim of this kind of relationship?
I think there are charities and help out there, but I think still people only recognise domestic violence as physical. People don't recognise domestic violence as emotional. So people are not really taking victims seriously, because narcissists from the outside world look absolutely perfect. They
Mhm.
will portray themselves to me this very loving um, partner or person, to anyone else apart from the victim. And this is what victims find really hard to deal with, because they know what they're getting behind closed doors and the abuse that they're receiving. But to the outside world, the narcissist will make out as if they have got this amazing relationship, that they're the love of their life. They will do anything for this person. But reality, that's not the case. So it's not only trying to prove to yourself what you're going through, you're actually having to then prove to everybody else that will actually take any notice of you, because they can't see this person that's portraying themselves to be so lovely and kind and caring to the person that the victim's describing. People just find it too hard.
And Emma, could you just walk us through like what kind of emotional experience a victim goes through as soon as they realize that they're in a narcissistic abusive relationship? Obviously, this is before the recovery stage. What kind of emotional experience they go through?
They start to feel helpless, fearful, isolated, like they've got their identities completely gone. They don't know who they are anymore. They just feel so low, and they start to get anxiety, depression, PTSD. They don't know that they've got PTSD, but they're suffering with all these different things that they never really suffered with before. And as I said previously, that the narcissist has made out that this is all in the victim's head. They haven't done anything to make this person this way, so they're fighting constantly with themselves, and it's just completely mind-boggling of where do I go, what do I do, can I speak out, is there something wrong with me? So just complete confusion as well that a victim would start feeling.
And based from your experience as a coach, Emma, can you give us some ways on how we could promote harmonious relationship? Of course, not all relationships are perfect, but there are some things that we can take into account so that we can promote a more positive relationship with our partners.
Yeah, I think boundaries is one of the most important things to have in a relationship. Once you realize that what your boundaries are and what your partner's boundaries are, you start to work together. A narcissist doesn't believe in boundaries. They will completely just disregard them. They won't take your feelings into account. So just to have all these things that you need to have a healthy relationship, listening to each other, communication, giving each other space, allowing them to have the friends and family, allowing their partners to have their own opinions, and to not and to appreciate that as well. Just to allow someone to be themselves. A narcissist will take someone and completely try and change them. So a red flag is definitely if you get with someone and someone wants to start changing you very quickly, then definitely look out for that, because that's not what a healthy relationship would look like.
And Emma, could you, of course, obviously, over the years, you've worked with a number of couples to help them with, their relationship. Could you also tell us some of the misconceptions about narcissistic abuse that you've come across with, and sort of, address those misconceptions?
People think that narcissists are or like it's just a word. Like I think narcissists are this word narcissist is coming quite is getting thrown about quite a lot within social media, etc. And not everyone is a narcissist. Like they need to have all pretty much a lot of the characteristics to be a narcissist. Everyone's going to have bad moods, everyone's going to have arguments, but it's just about how we deal with that and just allows everyone to have that kind of space. And as I've said before, if someone doesn't try to change you or to make your opinion change all the time, then I think it's quite a healthy relationship.
Now, Emma, that's the first half of the interview. What I do here on the DRH show is I try to learn more about the person. So we've learned about the kind of work that you do. So I just want to learn more about the Emma. So is there a particular individual who has the greatest influence to your work, or is there a particular piece of writing that informed the way you approach your how you deal with your clients?
I think the reason why my clients connect with me so much is because I was a victim myself. I am a counsellor, I am a narcissistic recovery coach, but I am me. I don't try to be anything else. And I think clients are very comfortable with talking to me because I've been through it myself. I went through this journey on my own. I went through the highs, the lows, obviously learning and doing counselling. I learned a lot about the brain and the brain development, so I could understand a bit more of what was going on. And I have felt pretty much every single emotion and been in every single situation that a victim that is going through this has been through, so I can relate so much, and they can see it. I can give them instances where I've been in exactly the same situation and how I dealt with it. And a lot of clients say to me, you're the only person that I've been able to connect with, because I can generally feel that you know what I'm talking about. I can actually feel you are feeling what I'm feeling, and it's because I've been there, I've done it, I've got the scars on my body. The passion I had when I was going through this was to help other people that were suffering from this type of abuse, because I'd never felt anything like it. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to overcome in my life. I was always been a very strong-minded person, but this completely broke me. The person sitting here today talking to you is nothing like the person that I was, say, 4 years ago. And clients can see that. And when I started this journey, I started to do videos, and I was recording my journey of recovery, and people saw how I felt and they just connected with that. And I think someone that's gone or going through the same thing as you can really connect with them better than just going to someone that you found on the internet that says, yeah, they specialize in NPD, and they sit there and they just don't connect. Because, and I think unless you've been through this type of abuse, you will not connect with those people that have, because it is completely different from alcohol and drug addiction, because those are substances. You know, those are, you go to the shop and buy them, or you call someone up to buy them. This is actually someone that is in your life. They're in your head and you can't escape it. And so overcoming narcissistic abuse is so difficult, because, as I said, you're suffering with not only just that addiction, but you're suffering with depression, anxiety, PTSD. So you're having to deal with all those things as well. And I just made it my life mission to help as many people as I possibly can, and to get this abuse recognised out into the media as much as I possibly can, because I do want to educate people. I want people to recognise, before they get to that stage of being hooked, of what this narcissist looks like.
And would it be appropriate for me to describe you as like a wounded healer? Like where you've said you've been through all of this, so essentially you're just, you know, trying to help people who've been in the same experience. Is that an appropriate description?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to be seen as, you know, anything but a normal person that's been through it myself, and it's my passion to help other people and to help people reinvent themselves, because that's what I had to do. I had to reinvent who I was. And it's an amazing journey. And when you get to the last phase, I do think reaching out and helping and supporting other people, it's like giving back what you've been through yourself through recovery, very much like AA, the 12 steps, etc. But this is, once you've been through it and you see another person going through it, you can't help wanting to help others, because generally we are empaths.
And obviously that there's a connection there, because you know how it feels, and you know like how good it is to recover from that situation. So it's really good that, you know, you're sharing your experience, you're sharing your insight, expert by experience. That's how I would describe you. Now, Emma, how do you relax? What's your distressing outlet?
I think I've started to run 5K every day now. Exercise was a massive part of my recovery, and it's also a massive release, because when you are coming off an addiction, any type of addiction, you kind of have to fulfill that high with something else. And exercise for me really did make me release what I was feeling, all the tension, the anxiety, the depression, and it releases endorphins, so it makes you feel good about yourself, because being with a narcissist, they do make you feel quite bad about yourself and they put you down. So when you're exercising, it makes you feel good. As well, I just love to read. I love reading about narcissistic personality disorder. I know it's probably me constantly working, but I just get great release from just knowing all these things, and just socializing, being around people that generally love you for who you are and accept you for who you are, and just not being afraid to be who you want to be.
Exactly. And Emma, what do you think you would be doing if you think you didn't work within the mental health sector?
I have absolutely no idea. I can't see me doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I live and breathe this every day. So I love being around people. So I would probably be doing something around people. But no, this is definitely where I belong.
That's your mission. And finally, Emma, what else is in the pipeline? Do you have any upcoming book? Do you have any upcoming webinar? And which platform can we get in touch with you?
So you can contact me via my website, which is mytraumatherapy.co.uk. My support group is growing rapidly. So Victims of Narcissistic Support Group. And you can contact me via that. But on that platform, actually, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock UK time, I offer a free hour-and-a-half Zoom session for anyone on the group to come on, and it allows you to meet other people, to talk about your story, and just to feel like you're part of kind of a fellowship, actually. And it just helps along with recovery. A lot of people have said that this Tuesday group has become a huge part of their life, and they look forward to it every week, because it's a place where that they can go, that they're talking to people that they don't know. They're not going to bump into them down the shops. There's people from America, Ireland, Spain, actually the Caribbean, all over. And it just really, really helps people. There's so many things in the pipeline. One is that I am creating an app. I don't want to say too much just yet, because it's still in the very early stages, but it is so exciting, and I can't wait for next year.
Just one last question, Emma. Would you seen an increase in abusive relationship because of the lockdown? Is that something that you've seen on your group within Facebook?
Yes, lockdown has made people realise that they are in a narcissistic relationship, because where they have been stuck in with their abuser for so long, it's really, really affected people's mental health, because they've not been able to escape. Where they've been able to escape going to work, or just going out, they've not been able to do that. And I've really noticed people saying that they have completely gone downhill in the way they're feeling, because they are being abused constantly. They are being around their abuser constantly. They're walking around on eggshells. Their anxiety is through the roof. The more you're around your abuser, the worse it's going to be. And lockdown has definitely made that even harder for victims.
Emma, Davey, it's a pleasure having you here on the DRH show. Thank you for sharing to us your wisdom, your insight, and I look forward to hearing more about your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Take care.
Thank you.